my dear estrogen deficient dames. You've come to Menopause University, where you learn all about menopause before, during, and after the transition from your reproductive life to your non-reproductive life. I'm Menopause Taylor, your teacher. And you know that this channel is really a classroom. So all the videos I presented before this one have laid the foundation for this one. Here we are at video number 462. Thus far in the education, I've taught you that menopause is when you outlive your ovaries and run out of estrogen. Well, estrogen was your fountain of youth. So when you lose your estrogen, you start aging rapidly on the inside and on the outside. Therefore, this point in time, when you start aging rapidly, constitutes the beginning of your estrogen window. Your estrogen window begins when your estrogen ends. I introduced you to the concept of the estrogen window way back in videos 80 through 90. And since then, I've addressed it over and over again in the units on heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. Most of our focus has been on seizing your opportunity to start taking HRT in the first 5 to 10 years of your estrogen window. Here. This is because the longer you go without estrogen and the more aging you have on the inside of your body, the more health risks you have in general. And the more health risks you have in general, the more risky it is for you to take HRT or anything else for that matter. So now that you have an education on the estrogen window and all its ramifications, it's time to address what I like to call the closed estrogen window. In other words, what do you do if you have gone for more than 10 years without estrogen? What if your window is like this? What happens then? What are your options? Is HRT absolutely prohibited? Or are you still possibly a candidate for it? How about a quiz question on this? Which of the following can be true in the context of a closed estrogen window? A closed estrogen window is a you snooze, you lose phenomenon, meaning it's an absolute prohibition against taking HRT. B, a closed estrogen window is a win some, lose some phenomenon, meaning some women have more benefits and others have more risks. C, a closed estrogen window is a different strokes for different folks phenomenon, meaning some women are still candidates for HRT and others are not. D, a closed estrogen window is a know thy comfort zone phenomenon, meaning you can do whatever makes you comfortable. E, a closed estrogen window is a buyer beware phenomenon, meaning you have to understand what you are choosing. F, a closed estrogen window is a throw caution to the wind phenomenon, meaning you might be taking unreasonable risks. G, a closed estrogen window is a devil is in the details phenomenon, meaning you have to consider the details of your situation. H, a closed estrogen window is a late for a very important date phenomenon, meaning you'd better hurry if you want to start HRT. I, a closed estrogen window is a can't win for losing phenomenon, meaning you're stuck and have no way to achieve your goals. J, a closed estrogen window is a you'll rule the day phenomenon, meaning your risks will outweigh your benefits and you will regret starting HRT. K, a closed estrogen window is a damned if you do and damned if you don't phenomenon, meaning you can't achieve your goals no matter what you do. L, A closed estrogen window is a it's never too late phenomenon, meaning that you can start HRT at any time after your window closes. M. A closed estrogen window is a too little too late phenomenon, meaning that you can keep your estrogen window open but still get the diseases due to estrogen deficiency. In all of the above. Well, what do you think? Do any of those stand out as the right answer? You know that I always tell you to go back to basics. And the most basic thing of all is that no two women are alike. Well, if no two women are alike, then no two aging processes for any two women are alike. So here's the answer in bold. Any of these can be true. It all depends on you. So a closed estrogen window in and of itself does not mean that you cannot take HRT, but every situation is different. So I'll warn you from the start. No matter what your situation, you definitely need to schedule a consultation with me at menopausetailor.me to assess your personal options. Addressing a closed estrogen window always requires tailoring. That's why this lesson is not in my book. But in this video tutorial, I want to delineate all the factors that go into assessing this closed estrogen window phenomenon. And that will at least give you some idea as to your options. But please, please, do not substitute this video for a consultation. There is no way I can give you as much here as I can in a consultation that is tailored specifically to you. All right, let's start at the beginning and put everything into perspective. We'll begin by contrasting the hormonal phases of your life. There are many, and they include premenopause, which includes both puberty and pregnancy, perimenopause, and postmenopause. If you stop and think about all these hormonal phases of your life, you realize that 3 of the 4 are temporary. Puberty is temporary, pregnancy is temporary, and perimenopause is temporary. But postmenopause is permanent. It lasts for the rest of your life. I guess we should call it menoperm rather than menopause. As you age, you put all of the other phases behind you, but not postmenopause. It stays with you for the rest of your life. And once you're postmenopausal, there's no turning back the clock. As I stated earlier, estrogen was your body's fountain of youth. It kept you young on the inside and on the outside. It slowed the aging process. So we'll put the bucket of estrogen up here as your fountain of youth. Let's put it there like that. Overflowing with estrogen. It's as if estrogen was a stop sign for the aging process. Okay? For years, your body produced buckets and buckets of estrogen. And as a result, you aged very slowly. We call this youth. But then your estrogen supply starts decreasing steadily, and you have less and less estrogen until it's gone. The bucket is empty. Well, the very definition of post-menopause is loss of your beloved estrogen. So if estrogen was your fountain of youth that prevented rapid aging, loss of your estrogen enables rapid aging. So we go from youth to aging. So when you lose your estrogen, that stop sign becomes a go sign. It's a go sign for the aging process. At postmenopause, you see visible signs of aging that you never saw before. Suddenly your skin wrinkles, your muscles get lax, your joints hurt, and on and on. But that rapid aging isn't just occurring on the outside of your body, it's happening on the inside of your body too. And the three organ systems that age rapidly in the absence of estrogen are your heart, your bones, and your brain. This is precisely why the three diseases of estrogen deficiency are heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. Estrogen kept your heart arteries soft and supple, like this. When you lose your estrogen, those heart arteries start stiffening like this. And the longer you go without estrogen, the harder they get. This is how we get to hardening of the arteries over time. Estrogen also kept your bones dense. When you lose your estrogen, you start losing bone. Osteoporosis is bone loss. The longer you go without estrogen, the more bone you lose. And the more bone you lose, the higher your risk of fragility fractures that will cripple you for the rest of your life. Likewise, estrogen was a fuel for your brain. When you lose your estrogen, your brain runs on fumes. That's why you have mental fog and can't remember anything. And the longer you go without fuel for your brain, the more your brain shrinks. That's what Alzheimer's is. Brain shrinkage. Now, unlike the aging you see and feel on the outside of your body, you cannot see or feel the aging on the inside of your body. All three of these diseases that are due to estrogen deficiency are silent but deadly. They all sneak up on you. You feel fine and then bam, you have a heart attack. Or bam, you fracture your spine or hip. Or bam, you have your first sign of Alzheimer's. So the real essence of the estrogen window is that it's all about aging. The longer you go without estrogen, the more these three organs age. So the term, a closed estrogen window, implies that you have gone more than 10 years without estrogen. And because of the long period of time without your fountain of youth, the window of opportunity for preventing the aging process in your heart, bones, and brain can expire. In videos 80 through 90 on the estrogen window of opportunity, you learn that the whole idea of hormone replacement at postmenopause is to bridge the gap between losing your own estrogen and replacing it. Bridging the gap. That's why your estrogen window begins when your estrogen ends. So the goal of hormone replacement is to prevent these three diseases from ever getting started. It is not intended to reverse them once they've already ensued. This is why the estrogen window pertains to the first 5 to 10 years of your postmenopause. Those first 5 to 10 years are when estrogen replacement can perform the goal of prevention. For the vast majority of women, the benefits of taking hormone replacement greatly outweigh the risks of taking hormone replacement in those first 5 to 10 years of postmenopause. But the longer you go without estrogen, the higher your risk simply because you're aging rapidly. After 10 years without estrogen, it is possible for the risks of HRT to outweigh the benefits of HRT. That's why we refer to the 10-year mark as the closed estrogen window. You know, I don't like the 5 to 10 year designation. I think it's a setup for a lot of misinterpretation. First, the range of 5 to 10 years is confusing. Which is it? 5 years or 10 years? Second, we do not all age similarly. So designating a specific number of years without estrogen makes no sense. There should be no designated period of time at all. Instead, it should merely be a matter of the early phase of your postmenopause. And since postmenopause lasts for 30 to 70 years, that early phase can vary greatly. But this is where the tailoring of everything specifically to you comes in. No two women are the same, and you have to tailor everything specifically to you in order to know what's best for you. You always want to balance your benefits against your risks. That's the name of the game. Most people who address HRT for menopause only terrorize you with the risks. But you've discovered that everything has both benefits and risks. So I give you the whole story. The benefits of taking HRT, the risks of taking HRT, and the risks of not taking HRT. It's a three-legged stool. And the only way you'll do what's best for you is to consider all 3 legs. And you have to apply the benefits and risks to each of these 3 organs that age in the absence of estrogen. Well, when it comes to the 3 organs, only one of them can possibly pose any risk whatsoever if you go for a long period of time without estrogen. Your heart. No matter how long you go without estrogen, your bones and your brain will always jump for joy if you reintroduce estrogen. They are always going to be happy to see it return. There is absolutely no risk whatsoever to your bones or brain if you start taking HRT after a prolonged period of time without estrogen. So for your bones and your brain, there is only benefit, no risk at all. Your heart, however, can go either way. It depends on how hard your heart arteries have become. If your heart arteries are still soft or just stiff, then starting HRT is still more beneficial than risky. However, if your heart arteries have already hardened, then starting HRT is more risky than beneficial. It really boils down to how much plaque your arteries have accumulated in the absence of estrogen. So we're going to put our arterial plaque buildup right there. And notice that the estrogen window is all about when you start taking HRT. It has nothing at all to do with how long you take HRT. So the question is whether it's more beneficial or more risky for you to start HRT with a closed estrogen window. That's the question. Well, this brings us to something called the timing hypothesis. The timing hypothesis states that if you start taking HRT before your heart arteries get hard, then it's more beneficial. But if you start taking HRT after your heart arteries get hard, then it's more risky. Well, this should not be called a hypothesis because it's not a hypothetical matter. It's a factual matter. It should be called the timing principle. Unfortunately, as I've taught you in the past, most doctors misinterpret both the 5 to 10 year terminology and the benefit-risk terminology of the estrogen window. Instead of understanding that the 5 to 10 years of the estrogen window pertains to a time frame for starting HRT, they mistake it to mean a time frame of duration for taking HRT. So instead of understanding that it's beneficial to start HRT in the first 5 to 10 years of your postmenopause, they assume that it's only beneficial to take HRT for a total duration of 5 years. And they typically ignore the 10-year terminology altogether. And instead of understanding that the benefits greatly outweigh the risks for the vast majority of women, they assume that the risks outweigh the benefits for all women. They've got everything completely upside down. Estrogen is no more dangerous for women than testosterone is for men. It's insane to think of the hormone that your own body made for its fountain of youth as dangerous. And because doctors have these misinterpretations, they are reluctant to give you HRT. Of course, their misinterpretations aren't the only source of their reluctance. The bigger source is fear of litigation. This all goes back to the infamous Women's Health Initiative, or WHI study, of 2002. In video 454, I referred to it as the Women's Hell Initiative. That one study was the most distorted, dishonest, and disgusting study ever done. But the media presented it to the public very heavily and very scarily. And in doing so, they scared women to death. Upon hearing the media's incorrect coverage of the study, women everywhere flushed their HRT down the toilet. It was the flush heard round the world. After the media reports, women started saying that HRT for menopause would kill you, and that any doctor who prescribed HRT was trying to kill you. Well, in order to avoid getting sued, doctors reacted to that by refusing to prescribe HRT. Believe it or not, that reluctance has endured for over 20 years. So now doctors are doing what's in their legal best interest instead of what's in your medical best interest. I have both a medical degree and a law degree. I know exactly what's going on. So it boils down to the whole cold, hard fact that ever since the WHI, not only do you hear solely about the risks of HRT, you're likely to have difficulty getting HRT even if your benefits greatly outweigh your risks. The reaction to the WHI resulted in a complete inversion of the reasons for giving HRT. Here's the chart I made for this in video number 454. The first column depicts the standard of care factors themselves. The second column reflects the standard of care before the WHI. The third column reflects the standard of care after the WHI. And you can see how everything got turned upside down. Before the WHI, all women were candidates for HRT. After the WHI, only women with severe symptoms of menopause were candidates for HRT. Before the WHI, the primary purpose for taking HRT was to prevent the 3 fatal diseases of estrogen deficiency. After the WHI, the primary purpose for taking HRT was to merely alleviate symptoms of estrogen deficiency. Before the WHI, the secondary purpose for taking HRT was to merely alleviate symptoms of estrogen deficiency. After the WHI, the secondary purpose for taking HRT was to prevent the 3 fatal diseases of estrogen deficiency. Before the WHI, the dosage of HRT was enough to prevent the 3 fatal diseases. After the WHI, the dosage of HRT was only enough to alleviate severe symptoms of estrogen deficiency. Before the WHI, doctors advised women to take HRT for the rest of their lives. After the WHI, doctors advised women to take HRT for the shortest time possible. It's all just so wonky. You haven't seen anything like this happen with insulin for diabetes or thyroid hormone for hypothyroidism. So now, the only reason doctors will prescribe HRT for menopause is if you have severe symptoms of menopause. And all doctors have a mental image of what constitutes severe symptoms. Well, we're addressing the closed estrogen window. And if your estrogen window is closed, it's because you've gone for more than 10 years without estrogen. So regardless of whether or not you have symptoms of estrogen deficiency, the question becomes, if you want HRT, how do you go about getting it? I mean, every doctor is going to ask you, why now? So let me walk you through the steps of how to go about getting HRT if your estrogen window is closed as a result of going more than 10 years without estrogen. The very first order of business is your peace of mind. I've told you that the only organ for which your risks can outweigh your benefits is your heart, right? Well, that means the very first thing you should do is assess the status of your heart. Go to a cardiologist and request a basic cardiac evaluation. It will entail simple things that cardiologists do all the time, like an EKG, a treadmill test, a coronary artery calcium score. Don't make the mistake of discussing your desire to take HRT with a cardiologist, for heaven's sake. Cardiologists know nothing about menopause or HRT. They have the same misinformation everyone else has from the media reports of the WHI from over 20 years ago. The goal is for you to know that the benefits to your heart outweigh the risks to your heart before you request HRT. And if your cardiac evaluation is fine, then you can use your normal cardiac studies as leverage to get HRT, and I'll mention more about that in a bit. Hopefully, your cardiac evaluation will be normal. If it's not, you can still start HRT, but you are taking a bigger risk by starting HRT. It all depends on your comfort zone and risk tolerance. The second step is approaching your doctor to request HRT. Now, this is the critical part. Listen closely, pay attention. Remember that all the guidelines for prescribing HRT changed after the WHI. So your doctor has guidelines that literally say, only give HRT in the first 5 years of postmenopause, and only give HRT for severe symptoms of menopause. So when you waltz in after 10 years with no estrogen, how are you going to meet these 2 requirements? You see, part of this education is learning how to play the game in order to get what you want. Because the guidelines focus on symptoms rather than on the 3 fatal diseases, you have to use your symptoms as the basis for your request. You cannot base your desire to take HRT on disease prevention. If you say, I want to prevent the 3 diseases of estrogen deficiency, your doctor is going to slam the door in your face. If you say, I want to prevent hardening of my heart arteries, your doctor is going to slam the door in your face. If you say, I want to prevent bone loss, your doctor is going to slam the door in your face. If you say, I want to prevent further shrinkage of my brain, your doctor is going to slam the door in your face. You must refrain from mentioning anything about diseases. Do not use the words heart, bone, or brain. Do not use the terms heart attack, osteoporosis, or Alzheimer's. You have to make it all about symptoms. And you have to make it believable that your symptoms are severe enough to warrant HRT after all these years. So here's how you do that. Number 1, do not go to your doctor looking like a beautiful, well put together model. Go in looking like a menopausal mess. Do not wash your hair. Make sure it's dirty. Do not comb your hair. Make sure it's all rumpled and messy. Do not wear makeup. Wear your dress inside out. And backward, maybe. Just make sure it's disheveled. Mismatch your shoes. The goal is to look as disheveled as possible. Make yourself look like a menopausal mess. And then stagger into the office. Take whatever you have from this education with you. Take my book. Take your consultation document. And sluggishly say, I just got a real education on menopause. There's a gynecologist by the name of Barbara Taylor who does nothing but teach about menopause. Here's the 2nd edition of her book. And I had a consultation with her. Look, she wrote me over 100 pages. And then start to bawl. Oh my God! Oh my God! I thought I had 20 different problems because of all my symptoms. I've even been running from doctor to doctor to relieve all my symptoms, but now I know that they're all just one thing. Menopause! Oh my God! My quality of life has suffered so much, and I didn't know it was all due to menopause. I call this the meltdown method. Remember that your doctor is thinking later start equals greater risk. So then, present your cardiac evaluation documents and say, I know I'm still a good candidate. Here are my cardiac tests. And then very insistently demand, I want HRT. Now, remember that your doctor is focused on doing what's in his or her legal best interests. So next you say, what do I have to do to make you comfortable prescribing HRT? I'm happy to sign a consent form or a waiver of liability or a disclaimer. The goal is to entice your doctor to follow the guidelines, but also protect him or herself against liability. Hopefully you'll succeed in the first attempt on getting HRT, but it's possible that you'll have to try more than once with more than one doctor. The goal is to avoid burning your bridges by going about this in the wrong way. And the wrong way includes looking like anything but a menopausal mess, dirty clothes, inside out, you name it, mentioning anything about preventing diseases, mentioning anything about treating diseases, or demonstrating that your symptoms are anything but severe. That's why I'm schooling you in precisely how to approach your doctor. Please believe me on all this. I have woman after woman come to me and say, My doctor said I'm not severe enough. I guarantee that if you do not approach this properly, you will not get what you want. Sorry, but that's the way fear works. There is nothing logical about it. Now, thus far, I've discussed the scenario of having no estrogen whatsoever since your fountain of youth ran dry. Well, what if you've been taking some estrogen replacement, but it has not been adequate for purposes of preventing the 3 diseases of estrogen deficiency? This can be the case in either or both of 2 situations. You have not taken pharmaceutical estrogen, and/or you have not taken at least the minimal necessary dosage of pharmaceutical estrogen. I've taught you all about these requirements in several previous videos. The only way you can possibly be questioning these requirements is if you are not watching my videos in order. Well, if you have taken estrogen replacement, but it has not been adequate to prevent the diseases, does it serve to keep the estrogen window open? Yes, it does. You have to separate the 2 goals. One goal is keeping your estrogen window open, and any kind of estrogen, pharmaceutical or compounded, can do that. The other goal is to prevent the 3 diseases of estrogen deficiency, and the only kind of estrogen that can do that is pharmaceutical estrogen in a dosage that is at or above the minimal necessary dosage for doing so. Compounded estrogen is completely incapable of preventing the 3 diseases of estrogen deficiency, but it can keep your estrogen window open. So this is a situation that is midway between adequately bridging the gap between losing your estrogen and replacing your estrogen versus having no estrogen at all and having the gap exposed. So, if your estrogen replacement has been inadequate, you have kept your window open, but you have still started developing hardening of your arteries, bone loss, and brain shrinkage. So a closed estrogen window does not automatically mean you are developing the 3 diseases, and an open estrogen window does not automatically mean you are not. Likewise, if you took estrogen replacement for a period of time and then stopped it, your estrogen window starts closing when you stop it. Your estrogen window opens when you have no estrogen. So the estrogen window is not about your age. It has nothing at all to do with your age. It is only about when your body was no longer supplied with estrogen. The meltdown method for getting more estrogen or more adequate estrogen is the same either way. Do not skip the drama just because you've taken some estrogen. Make sure your clothes are rumpled and dirty and your hair's a mess. Just revise the dialogue just a bit. It's, oh my God, my HRT is not adequate for me. I still have insomnia, night sweats, forgetfulness, mood swings. My vagina is on fire. I'm going to lose my job. My kids hate me. And I want to dump my husband. I just feel like I want to hurt somebody and I have a gun. Now, if you have a closed estrogen window and you do not want HRT, then you can use anything in the categories of diet, lifestyle, exercise, vitamins, minerals, supplements, herbs, and non-hormonal medications to manage individual symptoms of menopause or to help prevent the 3 fatal diseases. The difference is that you'll have to do about 30 things to accomplish what HRT can do all by itself, many of which require effort on your part. And if you'll actually do the 30 things, then fine. The problem is that most women won't do the 30 things. So be honest with yourself about what you will and will not do. The key difference between using HRT to manage your menopause and not using HRT to manage your menopause is that estrogen replacement is the only option that can accomplish all your goals all by itself. Of course, that makes perfect sense when you consider that estrogen did all these things before you lost it. So this is why replacing estrogen is the big ticket item with regard to preventing rapid aging on both the inside and the outside of your body. So now you know how to get HRT if your estrogen window is closed, and this is where I will close today. Your summary is as follows. If your estrogen window is closed and you want HRT, you must get a cardiac evaluation to ensure that you are a good candidate, look and act like a menopausal mess when you request it, limit your reasons for wanting it to alleviation of severe symptoms of menopause, and offer to sign a consent form, waiver of liability, or disclaimer. As you can see, I'll do just about anything to ensure your success in managing your menopause your way. If you want me to tailor everything to you, go to menopausetailor.me to schedule a consultation with me. I do them online with women all over the world. You owe it to yourself to discover whether or not you are still a candidate for HRT should you want to consider it. Most women are pleasantly surprised with the array of options available to them. But if you don't do the tailoring, you'll never know. I guess you could say that just because your window is closed doesn't mean that the door is closed also. The window is still open to subscribe to my channel and newsletter too. It's also open to follow me on all the social media platforms. Bye for now, my dears.